In the name I am that I am, Sanat Kumara, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved archangels, beloved mighty Choans of the rays and the lords of karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Cyclopeia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I demand the action of the sacred fire in this hour. Descend, almighty cosmos, secret rays. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sanat Kumara and the seven holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty, I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory. Come forth in this hour of the victory of the God flame. I demand the full power, beloved mighty, exceeding with us this night. Beloved Jesus, send it to me, Lord, my Savior, Gautama and Sanat Kumara. Come, Lord, now in the victory of the God flame. Send the light 10,000 suns. Beloved mighty, stand, mighty, stand, mighty, stand. I call upon the great and social magnet. I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved expand, beloved expand, beloved expand. I call upon the electronic control, the wings of the great
Good morning and welcome to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I am Robert Phoenix. I am here. I am your host. I'm your guide. I'm your navigator. And for the next hour or so, if this thing heats up and we're cooking for 2 hours, then I'll be here for the duration of the show, doing live readings for people throughout the world, and we'll see how it goes. How is everybody today? Here in California, it is sunny, it is blue, it is on the cool side, and I can certainly live with that. But the skies are clear. Astrologically, the skies are doing some interesting things. We just had a solar eclipse. And if you haven't been living under a rock, you probably are aware of that. The solar eclipse was very intense. I'm getting lots of feedback from people in terms of their own lives and what's going on and what's gone on since the solar eclipse happened. So today's show is very sparsely attended. Very sparsely attended. Unsure why. Oh well. Anyway, the eclipse has been super powerful for a lot of folks, and maybe people think that it's going to be at 11. Maybe that's it. I did change it though. I've got a funny little system here with the blog talk management. Anyway, it's the content management system. So the eclipse, if there are people on the line or if people are out there and they're listening, I would love to get your experience on the eclipse. So for me, the eclipse happened internally, literally because I was inside doing a radio show while it was happening. Now I could look out my window and I saw the sky darken considerably, and it was pretty powerful. But I've been talking with people post-eclipse, and there's been a fair amount of intensity in people's lives. Plus, we have this Venus retrograde, and I got to tell you, between the Venus retrograde and Saturn on my natal Venus, I'm about ready to jump out a freaking window when it comes to relationships right now. I mean, it is pretty intense material, and I don't know anybody that isn't strained right now with relationships. Not a one. I don't know one person that isn't strained and having to deal with a significant challenge in relationships. And we can talk about Venus retrograde. There's going to be a Venus eclipse, by the way. It's a very rare, extremely rare movement, and Venus is going to eclipse the sun just like the moon did, and of course it's in Gemini. So what we're dealing with here is duality. and trying to somehow overcome the challenges of duality. Interesting, as I speak, Mars is at 11 degrees Virgo and Venus is at 22 degrees Gemini. So we have 11:22, and currently, this is all universal time, by the way. The sun is at 2 degrees Gemini, and the moon is at 2 degrees Cancer. So there's another 22 embedded in today's, or at least this moment's numerology. An hour from now, it'll be a little bit different. But relationships are where it's at for people, and we're trying desperately to deal with this whole concept of duality. And Venus and Saturn, to a large extent, are forcing all of us to kind of get with the program in our own very unique ways. Libra is a form of duality. Libra is the scales. Libra is light and dark. Libra is male and female. Libra is this, this cleaving and this splitting apart in the 7th house and moving up into the 3rd quadrant of the chart, where we have to experience some form of psychic integration with Scorpio. That's what Scorpio is all about. Once you leave the 7th house and you get into the 8th house, now we're dealing with who are we, what are we, where are we, why did we get together, how do we get through this, why is it so difficult, can't we just love each other? That's Scorpio territory. Because what happens with people is that we've got, in terms of coupling, in terms of the Saturn and Libra energy, and Saturn it's only at 23 degrees right now. Wait till it ramps up and begins to move forward and gets closer and closer to the anaretic degree. It's going to get more and more intense. Venus and Saturn trying each other today, so you can have constructive results in relationship if you are clear-headed. You can't, Venus, Gemini, and Saturn are air signs. So there is a dispassionate quality that air signs have. Air signs are not, they're not, incredibly passionate. They're very mental. So if you are in the clinches today with relationships and really, somebody's grinding your gears, you have the opportunity to step back and be objective. You can be objective and look at your own role without, damning yourself or judging yourself and say, maybe I've fallen a little short in this area. I can make an agreement, because Saturn in Libra is about agreements. It's about agreements. And so you can make agreements with yourself, but then you've got to live up to those agreements. Now, once you make an agreement, well, first of all, you have to figure out whether that agreement is worth making. That is the most important and critical and challenging piece with the Saturn retrograde, especially Saturn retrograde Libra. Are you placating somebody just to get along? Are you agreeing to things that in the long term are not agreeable? Because if you are, they're not going to work. It's just not going to work. You just can't throw things out there and say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z so you get somebody off your ass. It's just not going to happen. So what you have to do is you have to enter into these agreements in a way that are manageable and realistic. And you have to be on board with the commitment to the agreement. And again, this can be very dispassionate. It's almost contractual. Now, when Saturn moves into Scorpio, it's going to be very different. Very, very different. And people are going to have to really understand the psychic forces that drive them. That we're moving out of the realm of relationship, both on a personal level and on a collective level. We are at a very tenuous intermediate stage. Like for instance, what happened during Saturn retrograde? Well, this judge in Virginia, I believe, Catherine Forrest, ruled that the NDAA is unconstitutional. That is a very Saturn and Libra retrograde kind of thing. And they passed the NDAA with Saturn was retrograde. And I knew it would have challenges. I knew it. So what we're dealing with here over the next few months, and we've only got, let's see, about 5 months left of Saturn in Libra. And once it moves out of Libra, we're in a very different territory. And, you know, I would suggest wholeheartedly that if you've got any relationship issues to deal with, you clean them up before Saturn goes into Scorpio. Because you don't want power plays coming at you and blindsiding you when you've had opportunities with Saturn and Libra to make things right. Because look, and there are times where you can only do what you can do, right? And no more. And then after that, it's between you and God. But if you don't get there, if you don't get to that place where you can look at your life and say, you know what, I did all I could during this Saturn and Libra experience, especially during the retrograde time, you haven't done it. If you have been putting things off in terms of relationships or saying things to people or coming to agreements, I'm telling you, when Saturn comes into Scorpio, it's going to get intense. You'll have to deal with things that are much, much more underhanded. And now you're into hardcore power plays. And Saturn on Scorpio is going to be merciless. Absolutely merciless. Now, we'll see this from a collective level because we're going to see more hardcore power plays taking place with Saturn and Scorpio. But the flip side of that is we're going to see also the mechanisms behind the power plays. We're going to see it's going to be much more transparent, and we're going to see the motivation, the psychological motivation behind this stuff. Scorpio rules psychology. So what's going to happen during that time, during the 2.5 years that Saturn's in Scorpio, is that people are going to have to get wise and smart and really, really psychologically sophisticated in order to deal with the world that we're living in and the world that we're moving towards. There's going to be a group of people, i.e. people my age, who are going to have to deal with Saturn on Neptune. Every generation goes through this, okay? So we went through it much earlier on. You know, we went through this in our teens, the Neptune and Scorpio people. We went through this in our teens. For a lot of us, it was all about drugs. You know, it was ticking that drug itch in our lives, and you know, trying to explore, make meaning of a vastly unexplored psychological and psychic realm, psychedelic realm. And so what we were doing is we're trying to understand this, you know, going through puberty, right? And going through puberty with Saturn and Scorpio is intense, very intense. And so for our generation, my generation, we're going to be going back and kind of looking at that first pass of Saturn and Scorpio. What was it like? Were we liberated? What did we do with our sexual energy? What did we do with our adolescence? What did we do with drugs? How did drugs affect us? You know, did we give our power away during that time? You know, did we try to understand our psychic connection to the world? Because the Neptune and Scorpio generation is a pretty psychic generation. We're driven by psychic forces. You know, there's no coincidence that The Exorcist with Linda Blair comes out during Neptune and Scorpio. And it was a very popular novel and very popular movie during the time I was growing up. So, and not just with adults, but with children. The other Neptune and Scorpio movie that was very popular at that time was The Devil and Miss Jones, which is a porn film. And then you had all these sort of 70s satanic movies coming out with Neptune and Scorpio. The Devil's Reign with Ernest Borgnine and a very young John Travolta. The Omen, The Legend of Hell House, Demon, one of my favorite cult movies, by the way, which has been since renamed into God Told Me To, a Larry Cohen film starring Tony LoBianco. Fascinating movie. Very fascinating movie. So these themes, these movies that were happening during the Neptune and Scorpio and Saturn and Scorpio reign are, these themes are going to be coming back again. So, what's going to happen now? Are people of my generation, are they going to go through a crisis of faith? They're going to flip the switch and get into something, quote unquote, holy? Are we looking at a rebirth of religion in the face of, darkness and temptation? Or are we looking at something perhaps even more sinister? Neptune and Scorpio represents, especially Neptune, things like jails, prisons, mental institutions, nunneries, monasteries, caves, temples. That's Neptune. And when Saturn is on Neptune, there is a limitation that's placed upon Neptune. Okay, I'm being kind of open and honest here. Now, the Saturn and Libra people have already gone through, right? They've gone through their Pluto with Saturn moving across their Pluto. They're just going through that right now. But the Saturn and Libra people, I think they've got Neptune. Some of them have Neptune and Scorpio, and some of them have Neptune and Sag, depending upon where they are with the Pluto-Libra timeline. So they're kind of split. Some of them will, towards the end of Saturn and Scorpio, feel it. But definitely the Neptune and Sag people they've got their Saturn-Neptune coming up in the not-too-distant future. So, right now, though, with Saturn and Libra, we have the opportunity to be able to reach some form of accord, some form of agreement. All right, so last week I was busted by a listener or a reader that I don't give out the phone number enough. So let me give out the phone number. It's 347-308-8995, 347-308-8995. There's also a Skype option. I've never Skyped in. You know what I need to do? I need to go to somebody's show and Skype into their show. That's what I need to do, which I have not done. But if you want to do a live reading and you want to talk astrology, you can call in. We'll do that, 347-308-8995, 347-308-8995. It's weird. It's like some days this place is packed, and other days, not so packed. Let me check the chat room. The chat room's got a few people in there. That's not too bad. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of birthdays today, not a really spectacular day for birthdays. Kind of a boring day for birthdays, actually. Let's see. I would say the most interesting people at the list that I'm looking at, and this is kind of a dated list. Douglas Fairbanks Sr., famous film actor, silent film actor. His birthday is today. Artie Shaw, the famous band leader, his birthday is today. Marvin Hagler, it's his birthday today. Rough and tumble, Marvin Hagler. Drew Carey, the funny man, his birthday is today. One of my childhood fantasies, sexual fantasies, Joan Collins. Joan Collins, it's her birthday today. What does Joan Collins' chart look like? I'd say when she was young, man, Joan Collins was smoking hot. So where's her Pluto? Pluto in the 5th house with Joan Collins. That makes sense. Sextiling Moon and sextiling Mercury. But not a lot else. Oh, trining her ascendant. There we go. Pluto, she's got Pluto in Cancer at 21 degrees, and she is well, we don't have the time of birth here, so it's probably not a fair assessment on the ascendant. And Venus, since she's so attractive, conjuncts her Sun, and she's got Venus in Gemini, and Sun in Gemini. So, and where's her Mars? Mars trying, she's got kind of an unspectacular chart, I got to tell you. No knock on Joan Collins, but this is not a chart where you go, wow, look at that. I would say Joan Collins' big aspects would be her Sun, and let's see, the Sun-Venus conjunction and the Moon-Mercury conjunction in the second house. Those are very Taurus, sensuous persona. Yesterday's birthdays were a lot more interesting. Of course, I didn't do my show yesterday. So yesterday's birthdays, well, Ted Kaczynski, that was his birthday yesterday. You got to admit, Ted Kaczynski was kind of ahead of the game in a lot of ways. Now, I'm not advocating in any way, shape, or form what Ted Kaczynski did, but Ted Kaczynski knew what was happening. He knew where it was all headed. He knew that we were headed towards a techno-fascist state that was going to be driven by transhumanism and the lack of checks and balances on technology. He knew because he was on the inside. He saw where it was going. So he was ahead of the game, way ahead of the game. Let's look at Ted Kaczynski's chart. Again, this is one of these charts without any birth time. She's got him down as Aries rising. So with Kaczynski, what would we look at? We'd look at ideology, and he's got Neptune trining his Sun, so he's very ideological and trying to understand peaceful and compassionate and spiritual solutions. Neptune squared his Mercury, which meant that he would have a crisis of faith somewhere along the way. And Saturn squaring Moon, challenging. The Saturn-Moon square is a challenging square. And I can speak to it personally because I have it. I've got the Saturn-Moon square in my chart. And, it's taken me a while to kind of wrap my head around that Saturn-Moon square. It's taken me a good 50 years, in a lot of ways to kind of, get through the challenges of this relationship with the most primary figure in our lives, which is our mother. And, just recently over the last couple of years since my father passed, that I've had the opportunity to work through a lot of uncomfortable experiences, with this person in my life who I was never really close to, because the Saturn-Moon square is, and look, I was never close to her even before I knew about astrology. There was always kind of an edge in terms of relating in the distance, which the Saturn-Moon square will produce. And so as I got into astrology more, I began to see this thing, and I didn't really know how to deal with it. I try to, my mother she's a Pisces, but she has no water in her chart. She's got these massive Aries conjunctions, all Aries. And if it's not Aries, it's Aquarius. So she doesn't have a lot of, emotional content to deal with. So getting to relate to her on an emotional level is not easy. With the air and the fire, she goes to anger extremely quickly. So it's taken about 2 years since my father passed to kind of get to a more worthwhile and just better way of relating with her. And she kind of blew me away the other day because she sent me this email, and it was after my kid's Little League game. And she said, she was there, she watched the game, and she said to me, hey, I'm really proud of the way that you're raising your son. You know, she never really shared that with me before, ever. And she gave me props for raising my kid. And she even said, and I know it's hard for you. I know it's hard for you, you know, financially, and the world's a challenging place. She, you know, she copped all that. So it was great. I got props from my mother, and it was kind of a big deal for me, to be honest. You know, so on one hand, I'm resolving this moon Capricorn, this moon Saturn square, because, well, my Saturn's in Capricorn. So I'm resolving that. And this is what happens as you get older with Capricorn. You get better at whatever the Capricorn aspects are. You just get better at it. So, you know, we like that. We like being able to, especially as we get older, things get, on some level, a little easier, theoretically. Now, if I can just work out the other aspects of my life with women. Somebody's on the line. Let's find out who they are. Hey, you're on the air with Robert. Thanks for calling in. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
My name is Diane. I'm calling from Noblesville, Indiana.
Hey, Diane. How's it going?
Could be better.
Yeah. Have you called into the show before?
No, I haven't, but I've listened.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to plug in. I'm having a bit of a hard time hearing you. So I'm going to go to my big gun and plug in my big speaker so I can hear you better, okay?
Okay.
All right, here we go. All right, so you're listening, you're calling, and what do you want to talk about, or what do you want me to look at today?
I'm not really sure whether it would be my son or myself. You were talking about mothers. My son just went to prison today. He's been in jail for a while, but he finally was put in prison today. I'm sorry.
It's okay, Diane. It's all right. It's okay. Just take your time. So he went into prison today. How long is he going to be in prison for?
2 years.
2 years. And how old is he?
He just turned 31 in jail this year, 2012.
Okay. All right. So, look, going to prison is never good, no matter how you slice it. But I will say that he is older and he's a male, and if there's anything that is even remotely positive about this, it's that he'll be able to at least handle himself a little bit better than being much younger. So what's his name?
Benjamin.
Benjamin. All right. Do you want me to look at his chart?
Yeah, that would be good.
All right. Well, let's do that. Let's look at Benjamin's chart. See what's going on with him. Let's go here. Okay, here. So we're going to devote some time to Benjamin. Okay. All right. When is his birthday?
2/4/80.
Okay, so he's an Aquarius.
Yes, he is, all the way.
Does he have a bit of the rebel in him? Is that it?
To look at him, you wouldn't think so, but yeah, I've pretty much seen it since he was a baby.
What time was he born?
He was born at 5:55 p.m.
What was that? Do you remember? So when he was born, were you really conscious? Were you, what were you like? What was his birth like for you?
Not real great, not real bad, not real great. Painful.
Yeah.
So, but it was a C-section. He did not want to be born. That's the story he loves to be told. That he didn't want to get out. And so, but his dad wasn't in the picture at the time. so it was kind of hard for me that way. I didn't have my family around me, so it was not uncomfortable that way.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been better. I was older, so I could deal with it.
Yeah.
But I was scared.
Yeah. Yeah. Where was he born? Where was he born?
Yeah, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking at his chart now, and let's see. Mm-hmm. Well, he's got a preponderance of planets in Virgo. He has Jupiter in Virgo, Mars in Virgo. He has Saturn also in Virgo, and he has Moon in Virgo. So, so he's got a lot of Virgo for an Aquarius. It's a very different energy, Virgo in Aquarius.
Yeah.
He's got Mercury in Aquarius and Sun in Aquarius, but he's much, much more Virgoan in a lot of ways. The one thing that he has potentially that is, really what I would call quote unquote in his favor or on his side is he's got a Pluto-Mars trine going on. And one of the things that I would suggest that you share with him is, Pluto's in his 6th house, which is his house of like work and service and finding a skill. Okay, so Pluto is trining his Mars, and one of the things that he could experience while he's in prison is he can learn a new trade. Okay, so if I were you, I would really try to get him to focus on getting some kind of skill while he's in there. And I'm talking about a legitimate skill, not a street skill. A legitimate skill that he can come out of that with, because the Pluto-Mars trine is actually very productive. Okay? And in the 6th house, Pluto is about transforming what a person does for meaning and what a person does for a living. And Mars is in Virgo, so it's about, and right now today, Mars is conjunct his natal Mars. So he's going through a Mars-Mars conjunction right now. Tomorrow, I believe tomorrow, the next day, it goes exact. Now, the challenging part for him, I'll be honest with you, is when Mars moves forward and hits his Saturn and hits his Moon. And that's going to be in a couple of, I think it's, let me find out. Hold on. June. So that'll be challenging for him because he'll be, Mars on Saturn is all about restrictions, right? And he's going to get really restless, and with Mars on Moon, part of what he's going to be going through is going to be really emotional, with you too, because Mars is on his Moon at that point, right? And he's got Venus in Pisces in the 8th house. So Mars is going to be opposing Venus, which, excuse me. So is this a drug related?
No, well, actually, it is. I think it originally. I think the crime itself came from drugs, basically, but not really. Marijuana was involved, but he wasn't a drinker. No, it is a nightmare scenario. I really don't want to go into that.
Yeah.
It has to do with his wife, his ex-wife. It really is crazy. But anyway, he does have a problem with women. And,
well, that's the opposition, the Saturn opposition to Venus, Moon opposition to Venus, and that Venus is in a T-square with Neptune. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and Neptune in the 5th house, which would be, you know, kind of a delusional, you know, relationship with his heart, and, you know, too trusting at times, and
and this stationary, this Venus retrograde goes retrograde right on that on that Neptune.
Yeah.
Too. Maybe this will be, you know, enlightening that way for him, I hope.
Yeah, I think that the Pluto-Mars, you know, the Pluto-Mars trine, I think could be quite good for him, you know, because I do think that he has an opportunity to have some form of remediation and learning something. I really feel like he can learn something very practical that he can take out of this experience with that Mars-Pluto trine. I feel actually pretty, if there's anything to be positive about this, I mean, that would actually be very positive. So I would encourage him to be able to do that. Were there kids involved with him?
No, thank God. No, there weren't. No.
Okay.
No. No children, no grandchildren.
All right. Well, Saturn has just moved off of his Pluto, obviously.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And so, you know, if anything, it's probably, you know, indicative of, you know, at least because Saturn Pluto is heavy. You know, I mean, I lost my job and I lost my marriage when Saturn, you know, transited my Pluto. Yeah. And what's happened to him, you know, it's, you know, the Saturn Pluto thing will reset your life. It's a major reset.
Mm.
So part of what he's going through is a reset in his life. And this is the social and the aggregation of his emotional, mental, and spiritual constructs that have created this in his life. And so, you know, could he have done this differently? I don't know. Maybe not. But he has an opportunity here to be able to really reset his life. And I feel very strongly about this Pluto-Mars trine. You know, and I think he's going to get healthier. I think look, prison is never a good thing, all right? But with the Pluto-Mars trine, I'm getting it can be a lot more positive than you understand right now, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get that. Let's see, Jupiter and Gemini. Well, he's going to have a Jupiter-Sun trine. And that's good. We like the Jupiter-Sun trine. I would not be surprised if somehow he meets another person in prison, not a man, but a woman. There could be some correspondence with the Jupiter-Sun trine. Not that that's what he needs right now. What he needs is skills. You know, that's what he needs. He needs something tangible that he comes out of this thing with that builds him up. And so, as his mom, I would definitely encourage that. You know, it's going to happen next year, but the Jupiter Venus square for him in his chart could be a little challenging because of that Venus in the 8th house. That's a tricky Venus and Pisces in the 8th house, opposing Saturn and Moon. So did you get into any arguments with this woman that he got in trouble with?
No, I have stayed away from that. That's not a good thing for me to do. No.
Yeah. You don't want to get involved with that Saturn Moon opposition there.
No, I've done her chart as well. I've done astrology for about 30 years. I mean, I really didn't see this coming at all. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes that happens, you know. It's just like, bang, there it is.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of in their charts. There was a lot of healing, Chiron going on. So, I mean, it looked fated to me from the beginning. No, I was actually friends with her. She has the Neptune Moon opposition, and she has kind of like issues with reality and stuff.
Is she like a multiple personality?
I think so. I got a whole lot of, but that doesn't play real well. If you're a man and you're accused of what my son did, you know, like even if you're married, you're done. You know, it was pretty bad. So it wasn't domestic abuse. So I don't know. It was pretty bad. It was bad what she accused him of. But she had also accused like about 5 other men of doing it. So, but that doesn't count. You can't say anything about that. So
Yeah.
It was bad. I do feel though like it was fated. I mean, I get that. I mean, I know that that doesn't sound right, but he had a lot of arrogance issues.
Arrogance.
Yeah.
Well, prison will solve that real fast.
Yeah, I guess. I thought it was a little harsh, but yeah, he did have a little problem with it. He's got Leo rising.
Yeah. Well, you know, his whole thing with, you know, Mercury and Sun in the 7th house, he just wants to be understood.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
You know, he just wants people to, you know, especially people that love him and people that he's in a relationship with. He just wants to be understood. And, you know, look, Aquarians are different people. They're unusual people. You know, I mean, they're kind of quirky. They can be really high-minded and very principle-based. But, you know, I know quite a few Aquarians, and I like them. You know, I've got 3 planets. I got Moon, Mercury, and Venus and Neptune all in my 11th house. So, you know, I hang out, you know, with Aquarians. So, but they are different, and they need to have somebody, especially him, with those planets in the 7th house. They need to have somebody really understand him and love him and accept him and not try to change him.
Yeah, and yeah. Well, I think that one really, really good thing. We've always had a relationship of, well, it's been difficult, really difficult, but we have always had humor, laughter. We could always laugh. So, but this has also increased. I mean, he finally appreciates, you know, well, because of my support of him in jail and throughout this process, that I really do love him.
Yeah.
And it has been, incredibly touching for me that way.
Well, you've got the Saturn-Moon conjunction, you know, and you guys he does. And, you know, you're never going to be very far from him, you know, in your life, in his life, even if it's in prison. That's not, I mean, there's only 1 degree separating the Saturn and the Moon there. You know, the one last piece with him is that he's a transformational personality. I mean, he's got, you know, Sun trine Pluto in his chart, right? And the Sun-Pluto trine really speaks to, you know, using intensity to change and alter and grow beyond who he is or what he's done.
Yeah.
You know, that's what the Sun trine is. And so part of this experience is that. You know, he's using this energy to transform his identity, and he's got Mercury trining Pluto as well, and so he's got a very penetrating mind. He's a very smart guy, you know, and you know, part of what he'll be doing likely in prison is reading a hell of a lot, and you know, it's not uncommon for men to get law books while they're in prison and study law. What level prison is he at? Is he at a federal? Is he at a state? Where is he?
It's medium, and I'm worried about his safety more than anything else. He's 6'4", but he's a nerd. He will gladly, you know, he will gladly confess to that. He feels fine with that, but he's not physical. He was born Mars retrograde, and he just has not been, you know, athletic, and I think that's also part of his problem, that he hasn't had a good outlet for his martial energy.
Yeah.
So maybe that will help that too as well. I'm
well,
not really sure.
You know, they got plenty of weights to lift in prison, apparently.
Yeah, there you go.
So, you know, look, I've never been to prison. I wouldn't know, you know, the first thing about, you know, what to, you know, advise for him. But, you know, with all that Virgo in his chart, you know, Virgos are sensitive. You know,
Oh, yeah, I know.
they're sensitive. What I would try to do if I were him is I would try to get into some form of service inside that prison, and whether it's teaching guys to read, or helping other prisoners, I think could help him immensely.
Yeah.
Immensely, because he's got all that Virgo, and all that service in his chart. And if he like friends people and shows them how to do things, and gives and helps them, with reading or with math or whatever it is that he can share with them, he'll make allies, and he'll make people will come to like him and appreciate him for his ability to help them. And again, that's Pluto in Capricorn trining that Mars, finding a way to serve. So I would suggest that to him. That would be the one thing I would suggest.
I think that sounds like it's a good idea too.
Yeah.
I thank you for your time. I know somebody else is probably trying to get in, but
you're the only one today. So this is.
Oh, really? That kind of I can't believe it.
Well, let's do you. Let's do you. Let's do your chart. When's your birthday?
Oh, yeah. This will probably blow your mind. Let's see. 1/14/49.
Okay, what time?
4:22 p.m.
And where?
Indianapolis, Indiana.
All right. There you go. There's your chart.
Yeah.
So you have the Sun-Moon opposition exact.
Yeah, sure do.
So again, same thing, probably a genetic piece with your Sun passed on, Sun in the 7th house. You just want to be understood in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be seen. You want to be honored. That's Sun. Sun in the 7th house is very strong. Relationships are very important, but it's more than just having a relationship. It's showing up as somebody very special and important in somebody else's life, and being seen for that. Moon so you have Moon in Cancer in the first. You're extremely sensitive, very intuitive, very psychic, and I guess on a just a fundamental level, the Sun-Moon opposition in your chart would have been a very challenging relationship between your mom and your dad.
Yeah, apparently early on they separated when I was 9 months old. So yeah, and
that's it.
They didn't get back together again until I was like 3 or 4, and I hated my dad. Blah blah blah. So, it was what it was. I have not had easy relationships. I can't say. I mean, I've been married 3 times. I can't say it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that one of them worked out, but I can't say that I didn't learn from each of them. I mean, I don't hate anybody.
Well, you have the chart of what I'd call a battler or a fighter. I mean, you've got Mars in Aquarius, and it's right at the edge of your 7th house, so almost in the 8th, and it's hooked up with Mercury in your 8th. And that's a very intense conjunction between those 2 planets, especially as Mars is really being pulled into the 8th, but still having some connection with the 7th. So, there's a real desire to fight for your rights and fight for your freedoms, and to stand up for who you are in a relationship. And then both of those planets oppose Pluto. So we're talking, intense power struggles, lots of power struggles, and getting through very, hard and challenging and rigorous times. But Pluto and Leo in the 2nd house is tenacious as hell. This is like, not somebody who's going to be, knocked off their game that easily. I mean, so you're a battler, you're a fighter, you're a survivor, certainly. And then you've got the Venus-Uranus opposition, which is challenging, because Uranus in the 12th house is one of the most unusual placements for Uranus, because it gives the individual a very strange, in some ways, inner life. Like weird things just happen to people,
Yes, I know.
and you would tend to attract relationships that would bring that out, like whatever latent oddness or strangeness. Relationships are the trigger because of how unusually unaspected Uranus is in your chart. Like Uranus is hanging out there and just waiting for a relationship to activate it. So the good news is that you've got Pluto getting ready to get into a much closer trine with your natal Jupiter. So you got to like that. And I'm sorry, conjunction. My bad, conjunction. It's a conjunction. So Pluto-Jupiter conjunction is very powerful, extremely powerful. And I would say what's interesting here is that your Pluto-Jupiter conjunction is really going to take place right around the same time Pluto is trining your son's Mars.
Right.
And I would not be surprised if, when he gets out, that the work that he does somehow involves you, that you are doing something together, because that is the Saturn-Moon conjunction as well. So
yeah. Well, I don't know. My Pluto is in direct opposition to his sun. There apparently has been and there was a huge battle of wills, which I pretty much just did not fight. I can't explain it. When he was like about 11, his dad went to jail. Actually, yeah, his dad went to jail, and at that time he chose to go live with his grandparents instead of live with me. Yeah. So we had a battle of wills, and I said, if you want to do that, fine. I mean, and he told me later he wished I had fought for him.
Oh, interesting.
So, I mean, that was a battle. But my moon, my sun moon, makes me, I think, a lot more submissive probably than I need to be.
Well, it would be passive aggressive for sure with the sun moon position, because you would be submissive with the moon, and then you would resent it, and then then you'd go into sun mode, and you would take that out on people in relationships. Oh yeah. But I get a sense here that he's going to learn something in prison, and that you two are going to work together. That he's going to hire you. You're going to form some form of business.
Well, he's really he's pretty good with IT.
Yeah.
So I don't know about that. I do feel like it was fated. I hope he does learn something from it. I know I'm learning something from it. I didn't think I could survive it, but we're doing it. So
yeah. Well, God bless you, and
Thank you.
Get him. Just see if you can get him to figure out if it's IT. Have him teach guys computer skills. Yeah,
I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah, and just figure it. Sure, and I know he could do it. And these guys would be like, let's say you want to get out of, let's get you up to speed in the 21st century, so when you get out of here, you can do something. Or if you're going to stay in here for a long time, here's how you create a website. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. Have them do that. Yeah. Okay.
I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So every now and then we get a big dose of reality that comes into the show like that. It happens. A few months ago was the woman who lives in Alameda here. I forget her name. I should remember her name. Who had a baby and didn't realize she was having a baby. She was pregnant. Didn't even know she was pregnant. She had it. It was like she had, she went bike riding, came home, took a bath, and plop, there's the baby. And now we have somebody here her son is doing time. Obviously quite upset. This is life. Life happens in a very big way. It's 10:56 here in California. My name is Robert Phoenix. You're listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. The phone number here is 347-308-8995, 347-308-8995. And if you'd like to call in and have a reading, it was an extended reading, obviously, because nobody's on the line. If nobody's on the line, I will spend as much time with you as you need or want. Think about that for a moment. Think about that. As much time as you need or want. Until, of course, somebody else comes on the line. Then I'll have to leave. But how often do you get a free astrological reading? Not very often. I've got an hour and 2 minutes left in the show. I'm going to play a little bit of music. Not a big piece, just a small piece. I'll jump into the chat room. And then when I come back, I'll get into some more astrology. And we'll look at some of the upshot of the eclipse and how it's impacted the world around us. So what do I want to hear today? How about, let's see, nothing too long. I don't want to play Richard Mystical Sun. He'll be on Friday. Let's just go with sound vibrations. All right, I'm Robert Phoenix. I'll be back in 5 minutes and 4 seconds. You're listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix.
One of nature's greatest wonders is the ability of the human ear to distinguish among the millions of sounds around us. Listen. You will hear later how these characteristics are determined by the frequency, intensity, and form of sound waves in the air. Recognize those sounds? Sure. It's these vibrations which your brain interprets as sound.
All right, that is Sound Vibrations by yours truly. Back in the day when I was actually making music. That song is, 4 years old now. And I miss making music. I need to make some more music. I was very into it, very intense. I would stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning, sampling and looping, which is what that is. Just in the chat room, hanging out with the best chat room on the internet. We were talking about being comfortable with uncomfortability. And let me explain what I'm talking about. We're living in a time right now where things are really chaotic on so many levels. The economy is seismic. It's up, it's down, it's mostly down, but it's up for some people even when it's down, so figure that one out. A lot of people are losing their jobs. Hewlett-Packard just said that they're going to lay off 10,000 people. Where are those people going to go work? They're all going to go start, their own little businesses. They're all going to go peel off and start 10,000 new Hewlett-Packards, which is what the uber capitalists would love to have you believe. Oh, well, I'm so good. Especially in a company like that, they can go off and start new businesses. That's America. Creative destruction. Well, in another time, maybe, when there's ready and available cash to be lent to people and companies outside of the TARP mafia, sure. There's a potential for that. People like to talk about how Microsoft spawned all these millionaires, and these millionaires started businesses, their own businesses, once they left Microsoft. And there's some truth to that, because I lived in Seattle at the time when these young guys were getting big, fat Microsoft money. I knew some of these guys, and they were, buying buildings. I was like, oh. Starting their own businesses. So there's some truth to that, but that was during a different time and era. This is not that time. So you've got people, freaking out. People are freaking out, okay, about money. People are freaking out about what can happen next. When is the next shoe going to drop? When is the next fill in the blank? And it is out there on a collective level, and it's out there on an individual level. I don't care how safe or secure you think you are, how much dough you've got, where your 401k is. You got to be suspicious, because that is the vibe of the time. It is suspicion, the underlying vibe at the time. And so what happens when people are uncomfortable and freak out? What do? They do things. They lash out. They find, low-hanging fruit and lash out the low-hanging fruit. Classic case in point, when Rush Limbaugh called out Sandra Fluke. Remember Sandra Fluke? Remember her? Boy, what a cause celeb she was for about 4 or 5 days. And she's gone. And where's Rush Limbaugh? He's still in the air. Is he an asshole? Sure he is. But what I saw was, that there were people who were progressive, who were liberal, and boy, man, they just wanted to tar and feather this guy. It was a lynch mob. It was a total lynch mob. They wanted to tie him up and tar and feather him and beat him with sticks and run him out of town. He was low-hanging fruit. He was symbolic, low-hanging fruit. And there are people that are so frustrated and so challenged in their own lives that when something like a Rush Limbaugh comes along, it is a big deal for them. Let's go punch him. Let's go kick him. Let's go after him. How dare he say this? And that's on a collective level. On an individual level, it happens. You have people in your life who are going through issues, and if there is some strained aspects in your chart that you got to deal with, like Saturn on Libra, then you gotta deal with it. You gotta figure out, how to roll with the punches. If somebody drops a neutron bomb email on you, what do? Or a couple of them in a row. Well, I'll tell you what you do. You get better at being comfortable with being uncomfortable. You get into the email and you just kind of surgically look at it or deal with it, say this is what it is, this is where it's at. And you know what? You don't react. You just don't react, because if you react, then the other person is going to use that energy and come at you harder. They want you to react. They want you to get mad. They want you to get sad. They want to push your buttons. They want to feed off of your energy. That thing that is feeding off them wants to feed off you. And you can't let them. And you have to be cool. You have to be okay with being uncomfortable. It's like, this is where it's at. This is what we're going to do. This is how it's going to be. I'm doing my best. End of story. Next subject. And if they keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and you remain calm, and you're okay, and you're not in denial, and you're not running away, guess what's going to happen? That person is going to explode. That person is the person that's going to have the crisis. Now, you may be having a crisis, and you may want to do everything in your power to make that person's life as miserable as possible, because they're making your life miserable, but you can't do it. That doesn't mean you lay down and bend over, but you can't do it. You've got to be resolute and clear and find workable solutions. These are not easy times, and they're not going to get easier. They're just not, okay? Nobody is going to open a spigot of cash, in the Federal Reserve, throw it into banks, and banks are going to start lending, and, nobody's going to sit down and say, hey, let's create more jobs in America. Let's create more businesses. Let's create more car companies. That's not going to happen. They're shutting down here, folks. They're shutting the program down. In California, what are they doing here in California? I'll tell you what they're doing here in California. They're going to a cap and trade system with smart meters. And by the way, I finally opted out of my smart meter yesterday. So they're going to come to my house now. They're going to take that smart meter away. I got to pay them money to do that. I'm paying $75 and an extra $10 a month on my electrical bill to not have a smart meter, but it's coming. It was a very important act of empowerment for me. So I want to thank Josh Hart, who's been on this show twice, for his efforts, and all the StopSmartMeters.org people to get PG&E through the PUC to offer this option. It's not the best option because I got to pay for it, but it's an option. So, we got to figure out ways, to get through this time. These are not easy times, and they're not going to sit around and say, like I said, they're shutting down here. They're shutting down in America. They're taking power plants down in California. We're going to have rolling brownouts, and energy costs are going to go through the roof here. It's just like energy costs with cars. It's a forced austerity. They're not calling it an austerity program, but they're forcing it. They're forcing it by rising prices. And I'll tell you right now, these are like sanctions. They're soft sanctions. And I was having a conversation yesterday with a woman I work with, and we're talking about her business. And we're talking about business in general. I was talking about Agenda 21. And I was talking about the ecological component with Agenda 21. And she's interesting because she is mostly agreeable with what's happening politically, what's happening with presidential race. She's a small business owner. Obama's cut her no slack at all. And yet, when I brought up Agenda 21, she was like, oh, I'm all in favor of alternative energy and green. Okay, but I said, okay, but at what cost? How far are you willing to be in favor of it? And I laid it out for her. And I said, all right, so you don't want any more nuclear, that's fine. You don't want more coal, that's fine. But what's to prevent the city of Albany, which is where she has her business, from putting solar panels on every single roof in that town? Why? Because the Public Utilities Commission doesn't want them to do that. Because that gets people off the grid. You get off the grid, guess what? They can't turn your power off, folks. You get your power turned off, it is a weird feeling. I don't know if it's ever happened to you before. It's happened to me. You get your power turned off, and you got to scramble. You're like, oh, I'm nothing without the power. And they could easily. Think of all the money. Think of all the money that's spent on useless bullshit on a yearly basis, federally, on a state level. You could say, hey, guess what? We're going to earmark $1 billion a year for a solar America, a pure solar America. And guess what? We're going to give Americans free energy for the most part, because that's what the sun is. It's the closest thing we have right now. We're going to give them that. That's your tax break, America. Here's an interesting question. If you're an American and you have Social Security, right, you've been paying into the system. If the federal government came to you and said, we are going to make you a deal. We're going to give you free solar. We're going to hook it all up for you, and you're going to get free power for the rest of your life. And we're going to calculate that against your Social Security over X amount of years based on your life expectancy, and we'll deduct that from your Social Security, but you'll never have to pay another utility bill again. Would you do it, America? Would you do it? Or maybe you don't even have to do it. Maybe it's a separate line item. You just get it. I mean, why not? Why not just give everybody in this country freaking solar energy? I mean, that would be $150. That would be, for some people, that would be a savings of about $3,000 a year. That's nothing. Nothing. And think of all the energy that we could generate. We could sell that energy to Mexico. We could sell the energy to Canada. We could sell the energy to both of these places. But that would be, an agreeable form of green energy. It can be done. It can be totally done. They talk about this green economy, with wind farms and solar, and, it's like, do it. Do it. But don't put any strings attached to it, because, if you get solar here now in California and you get a tax credit, or some form of compensation, or remuneration or rebate with your solar, you only get those if you tie your solar to the public utility system. So essentially what you're doing is you're having your solar energy metered off, and you're buying your own solar energy back from PG&E, albeit it is cheaper, but PG&E is still controlling the solar energy. That's how you get these credits. But over the course of 10 years, at $3,000 is $30,000. $30,000 over 10 years. I know $3,000 can buy a lot of groceries for people. Anyway, this is not necessarily a political rant show. It's about astrology. But since nobody's calling in about astrology, I just thought I'd go off on that tangent. We got to be able to be more comfortable. We've got to get more comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's just the way it is. To be able to be nonplussed by life shocks. It doesn't mean you have to be a robot, because we have emotions. But use your emotions for what is valuable in your life. Use your emotions for what's worth being emotional about. Save your emotions for the people that deserve your emotions, not people that are trying to suck the life force out of you through threats and agitation and fear. Don't allow them. Don't allow them. Be sovereign with your emotional state. Okay, it is 11:18 here, and I'm going to give out the number one more time. And what I'll do is I'll talk for a while more, and if nobody else wants to call in at 347-308-8995, 347-308-8995, I will transition out of here at 11:30 and make this a 90-minute show versus a 120-minute show. But I'll give you some options, some opportunities to call in if you want to do that. And we have a Skype line here as well that you can use. So Jupiter Gemini is coming up, and it's going to be an interesting Jupiter Gemini for the Pluto and Virgo generation. You know, the Pluto and Virgo generation is going to have some psychic challenges with the outer planets. You know, Saturn is going to be on their Neptune, and Pluto is going to be squaring, or Jupiter is going to be squaring their Pluto, or our Pluto. And the Pluto-Jupiter square is very intense. It's about power struggles. And it's about wanting to do something of note and significance, and perhaps overreaching as a result with the Pluto-Jupiter square. So we got to be careful. For Pluto and Virgo people who are born, you know, between 1 to 10 degrees Pluto Virgo, you know, we got to be cautious because Jupiter goes retrograde fairly early and hangs out at around 7 to 8 degrees up through December, and finally moves beyond it in February. So if you've got Pluto and Virgo in your chart, you've got to check Jupiter out, you know, and it is a challenging square, very challenging square. So you factor in the Saturn on Neptune, and hallelujah, and then we've got Neptune going through Pisces, and in the early degrees of Pisces beginning to oppose, you know, the Pluto and Virgo generation. So the Pluto and Virgo generation is going to be tested in a very big way. You know, I was working on this piece, and I'm going to finish it. I'm probably about halfway through. And I was looking at, let me see if I can find this, and we can talk about this. It's going to take me a second. I'm going to read you this list of people. So it would be, okay, these are the top spiritual 100 leaders. And this is by Watkins Books. And they put this out every year. It's like the spiritual power list, okay? And I saw this because I was on Alex Gray's Facebook page. And I looked at the people that were on this list, and it's a fascinating list on many levels. And on other levels, it's not so fascinating. But the number one at the top of the list is Eckhart Tolle, and he actually eclipsed the Dalai Lama for the first time. It's been Dalai Lama 1, Eckhart Tolle number 2. So Eckhart Tolle is the most spiritually influential person in the world. Dalai Lama number 2, Dr. Wayne Dyer number 3, Thich Nhat Hanh number 4, Deepak Chopra number 5, Louise Hay number 6, Paulo Coelho number 7, Oprah Winfrey number 8, Ken Wilber number 9, Rhonda Byrne number 10. What do all these people have in common? I'll tell you. They all have in common that they were born with Pluto in Leo. Pluto in Leo. Let's go to the next 10. Number 11, James Redfield. Number 12, Gil Donald Walsh. Number 13, Doreen Virtue. Number 14, Alejandro Jodorowsky. Number 15, Richard Bach. Number 16, Alice Gray. Number 17, Byron Katie. Number 18, Masaru Emoto. Number 19, Nelson Mandela. Number 20, Bernie Siegel. What do they all have in common? With the exception of maybe Doreen Virtue. I'm not sure. Again, Pluto in Leo. All Pluto in Leo. Let's go to the next 20. Carolyn Mace, number 21. Brian Weiss, number 22. Mantak Chia, number 23. John Gray, 24. Greg Braden, 25. Stephen Covey, number 6. Marianne Williamson, number 7. Mata Amrita Nanda Maya, number 29. And Philip Berg, number 30. Now, here we have the first appearances of Pluto in Virgo. Greg Braden has Pluto in Virgo. I don't know about Brian Weiss. I don't know who he is. But all the rest, Pluto and Leo. And then we go to the next 10. Philip Berg, Irvin Laszlo, Andrew Harvey, Don Miguel Ruiz, Joseph Alois Ratzinger, a.k.a. the Pope, Krishna Das, Prunvala Melchizedek, Sai Baba, Jack Kornfield, Pema Chodron, TKV, the Sikachar, again, all Pluto in Leo. You're sensing a pattern here. It's a very clear pattern that Pluto in Leo dominates, absolutely dominates this whole idea of being a spiritually influential person. So, what is Pluto? Pluto is transformation and change. What is Leo? The kings and the queens, right? This is totally what, kind of where we're at with the evolution of quote-unquote spirituality and who's been running the spiritual show for a very long time. And my question is that are other generations equally as spiritual, but just came to the table later? As you get down the list, you can find people like Andrew Harvey or Daniel Pinchbeck, who are, Harvey's my age, born in the same year. Pinchbeck's a little younger. David Data, he's younger. So you're beginning to see kind of the infusion of younger people, occupying this list. Pluto and Libra, some Pluto and Virgo, but mostly the list is comprised of Pluto and Leo. Almost exclusively Pluto and Leo. Although you go into people like Robert Thurman, Uma Thurman's daddy, and I'm sure he's got, Pluto and Cancer. But the whole idea of spiritually influential people is amazing. It's like there's some very sketchy characters. Andrew Cohen is really sketchy. I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever followed, his whole scene, his enlightenment trip, but he is a ruthless, dictatorial, guru. And he's had lawsuits brought against him. He's like, he's very, he's not a kind, loving guy. It's a very heavy scene around Andrew Cohen and his world. There are people out there that have gone online and talked about just how, effed up, following this guy has been and how it's screwed their life up. Sai Baba, extremely controversial. My buddy, Les Visible, really likes Sai Baba. Sai Baba's a pedophile. He was arrested on sex crimes. He's number 37 on this list, and he's dead. He's dead. Drunvala Melchizedek, known for stealing people's material. One of the people behind Little Grandmother. We all know about her. There's some sketchy people here, some very, very unspiritual people on this list. It's a strange kind of, aggregation of, Shakti Gawain is number 59. What has Shakti Gawain done, really? Since she wrote her one book about creative visualization, and she's been on this list ever since. But there's some good people. I think Lynn McTaggart is interesting. She's way down in list 99. Coleman Barks, who I saw read Rumi one night, was transformational. He's here. I've had some of these people have been on my show. Bruce Lipton, number 51, he's been on my show. Andrew Harvey, one of the best interviews I've ever done. He was on my show. So I've got some folks that have been on my show before on this list. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there from a Pluto perspective. It's time. It is time for us to take spirituality and integrate it back into our lives and not have it be maybe this is my trip too, not have it necessarily be that important of a flag flying event. We just integrate it. It's just part of who we are. All right. I'm done. I'm done for the day. I did my reading for the day. I did my community service, and I feel good about that. I'll be back on Friday. I think I'm going to have Richard Mystical Sun come on again. We're going to talk more about his record, and I might try to get my buddy Pete Darling, who's the author of Winter Republic, and we'll talk about his book, Winter Republic, on Friday. We'll bring both these guys on and maybe share some airtime with them and read some excerpts from the book and some music. So we'll get into art. Let's get into art as a transformational process on Friday. Okay, I want to thank everybody who showed up today and was in the chat room. I appreciate you and all your support. And I want to thank everybody that listens to this show but does not call in. And also I want to thank people who listen to the show on podcast. I appreciate it. It gives my world color and shape. So with that, I will leave you with my sign-off line, which is, do your best to discern what's real and use your head to discern what's real. Sometimes I screw this up. It's a moment. Use your head to discern what's real. Your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix, and you have been listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix, and I'll see you on Friday with the Friday forecast. I'm out of here.
In the name I am that I am, Sanat Kumara, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved archangels, beloved mighty Choans of the rays and the lords of karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Cyclopeia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I demand the action of the sacred fire in this hour. Descend on mighty cosmos, secret rays. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sanat Kumara and the seven holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty, I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory. Come forth in this hour of the victory of the God flame. I demand the full power, beloved mighty, to be with us this night. Beloved Jesus, send to me, Lord, my Savior, Gautama and Sanat Kumara.